It being 7 p.m. on the 21st day of October 2024 in the town of Grafton, I call this annual town meeting to order. Welcome to Fall Town Meeting. My name is Dawn Anderson, and I am the town moderator. I respectfully ask that you address me as Madam Moderator. I invite the chair of the Select Board to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand.
Please. Thank you. My first order of business is to appoint Dave Robbins as my deputy moderator. Thank you, Dave. To review a few of the rules of order, no food or drink is allowed in the auditorium during the meeting. The section to my left is reserved for visitors, and visitors who are associated with boards and committees may sit with those boards or committees if they've already checked with me. Shouting or outbursts will not be tolerated at any time. If you would like to speak on an article, please proceed down to the front of the auditorium and speak clearly and closely directly into the microphone. We're trying to combat some of the difficulties we have had with hearing. If you are unable to make the journey down to the front of the auditorium but would like to speak on an article, we have two representatives from Grafton High School's National Honor Society here. If you raise your hand and call for a point of personal privilege, they will bring you a wireless microphone. Thank you, Finn and Rob. Please remember to state your full name and address before you speak on any article. Wow, I put that in twice. It's important you speak closely and clearly into the microphone so all the attendees can hear you. I want to remind everyone that questions should be directed through the moderator, so we're not going back and forth with each other. We'll take a break, go through the moderator. And tonight's town meeting is being filmed by the Grafton Community Television and will be broadcast with closed captioning provided by the Grafton Cable Oversight Committee. Next up, we have our remote control voting. We're going to do a quick test. Did everyone get a remote control when you registered? Excellent. Everyone press 1 for yes, now everyone press 2 for no. When you press, there's a little display screen. It tells you which number you selected. Once we close the voting, that number will disappear. Okay, that looked good. The town clerk has asked me to remind you all to please return your remotes when you leave the building this evening. They are hard to replace, they don't work anywhere else, and one did leave the building at Springtown meeting and we had to hunt it down. So please remember to put it in the box on your way out. Dave, can you check and verify that everyone out in the auditorium, in the lobby, what is that space called? Can you hear me? The Commons, the foyer, the Commons. Testing, testing, testing. Bueller? Huh. Okay, we got the thumbs up. On stage tonight, we have our select board, our town clerk, Candy LaValle. Behind me is Finance Committee. We have Evan Broussard, our town administrator, Chris Brown, our town council, and William Assistant Town Administrator. Oh my God. William Blake. Wow. Okay, now, our Town Clerk, Candy LaValle, will read the return of the warrant.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Grafton, Annual Fall Town Meeting, October 21st, 2024, Worcester. To any of the constables of the Town of Grafton in the County of Worcester, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Grafton qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet in the Grafton High School Auditorium located at 24 Providence Road on Monday, the 21st day of October, 2024 at 7 p.m. and act on the following articles. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up an attested copy thereof on the official website of the Town of Grafton and the Town Bulletin Board in the Grafton Municipal Center at least, 14 days before said meeting. Hereof fail not and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the Town Clerk at the time and place of meetings as aforesaid. Given under our hands the first day of October in the year 2024, Select Board, Town of Grafton, Anne Marie Foley, Chair, Andrew Jefferson, Vice Chair, Mark Alamo, Clerk, Craig Dauphiné, Matthew Offen. I have complied with the requirements of the above warrant and with the Town of Grafton bylaws by posting an attested copy of the warrant on the official website of the Town of Grafton and the Town Bulletin Board in the Grafton Municipal Center on the above date. Cynthia J. Ide, Constable of Grafton.
Thank you, Candy. Article 1.
Madam Moderator,
Ms. Foley.
I move that the town vote to rescind the authorization to borrow in the amount of $200,000, which was previously authorized in Article 17 of the Fall 2022 Town Meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 134 to 5. Article 2.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Jefferson.
I move that the town vote to rescind the authorization to borrow in the amount of $140,000, which was previously authorized in Article 13 of the Spring 2022 Annual Town Meeting.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 140 to 2. Article 3.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Alamo.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to extend for a term of 30 years the June 16, 1995 lease by and between the Town of Grafton and the South Grafton Water District for the 3.77 acre parcel of land known as 41 Sampson Street, property ID number 114.00000-0064.0. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 142 to 2. Article 4.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Dauphiné.
I move the town vote to authorize the Select Board to grant a 50-foot utility easement to the South Grafton Water District to install, locate, relocate, construct, reconstruct, add to, dig, lay, operate, inspect, repair, replace, alter, remove, and maintain utilities serving the premises in and through a portion of the town's property, which is 164,288 square feet, plus or minus parcel land shown as the Town of Grafton parcel on a planned land entitled Plan of Land in Grafton, Massachusetts, dated August 24th, 1984, prepared by Whitman and Howard, Inc., and recorded in the Worcester County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 662, Plan 42, on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deemed to be in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Yeomans?
I just have one question. This particular land, is it for the improvement of the building in the South Grafton Water District? And will the land be part of the Wellhead Protection Area Zone 1 or the Wellhead Protection Area Zone 2?
Madam Moderator, I think
Yes.
Steve Lemoyne from the South Grafton Water District is coming down.
Representative from South Grafton Water District.
Good evening, Steve Lemoyne, 357 Providence Road, Superintendent, South Grafton Water. The easement will be part of the Zone 1 of the water supply well. We're building a treatment plant. We're going to be running utilities in there, being natural gas for a generator, as well as with the new Mass Plumbing Code. We have to put a restroom with inside the treatment plant, so we'll be running a gray water line out as well. I hope that answered the gentleman's question. Okay. All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Are there any other questions or discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carries 148 to 2. Article 5.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Often.
I move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate a sum of money and the amount of $550,000 from free cash to the North Street Elementary School roof replacement account.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? No, he's just waving. Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried 136 to 8. Article 6. Ms. Foley?
Sorry, Madam Moderator. I move that the town vote to amend Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, Section 12, and Appendix A-3.2.3.1 of the Grafton zoning bylaw as written in Article 6 of the Fall 2024 Town Meeting warrant, and further vote to authorize non-substantive changes to the lettering, numbering, and pagination of the zoning bylaw to be consistent with said bylaw.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Before this article is open for discussion, the chair of the planning board will be making a brief presentation. Mr. Robbins?
Thank you. David Robbins, 92 George Hill Road, Chair of the Planning Board. What this article proposes is, to sum it up in one phrase, mixed-use buildings in the neighborhood business and community business zones. And what we mean by mixed-use buildings here is a commercial building with commercial use on the first floor, possibly commercial use on a second floor, residential use on floors above all commercial uses. This requires a planning board approval by way of a special permit. It's not by right. It does not bring any other village mixed-use elements into the neighborhood business and community business zones. We have our village mixed-use districts, which is a whole other story. This doesn't change that. This is intended to preserve the primary commercial orientation of these two business districts. And because the building height in these districts is limited to 35 feet, the buildings can be no more than 3 floors in height. So again, you're looking at a commercial use on the first floor, at best maybe 2 floors of residential use above it, or commercial, say retail on the first floor, offices on the second floor, and apartments on the third floor. And why has this come to the town meeting? Primarily it's because we've received a fair amount of interest from local business owners to be able to include some residential elements in their businesses. It's also consistent with some market trends that are generally moving in favor of more mixed use in business districts. And it's also consistent with the community interest that we've seen expressed through our master plan outreach. We've got quite a bit of community interest locally in this besides just from business owners. So next slide, please. So what does this mean in terms of what could happen? Again, it's the neighborhood business and community business districts. It so happens that these districts are already almost entirely developed. 36% of the acreage in these two business districts is currently occupied by residential use, all or part of 94 lots of residential. 62% of the acreage in these districts is currently occupied by non-residential, commercial uses. And this includes 74 lots total, including a few lots that are already categorized by the assessors as mixed use. Vacant lots within these two zones, there are 7 vacant lots currently, again, as classified by the assessor. All of them are small. The smallest one is 1,500 square feet. You're not going to build much on that. The largest one is 7/8 of an acre, and it's the only vacant lot in these two districts that's potentially developable in the future. It meets all the zoning requirements. All the other lots are really too small or otherwise spoken for. So except for that one vacant lot, any project that takes advantage of this new provision is going to be an adaptation, a renovation, or a replacement of an existing commercial building. And one other side effect is some existing, currently non-conforming mixed-use buildings may well become conforming. Next slide, please. And this is just a brief listing of the actual proposed changes in the zoning law. The most important one is the definition of the term mixed-use building. Non-residential use on the first floor, optional non-residential use on the floors above the first floor, and residential uses above all non-residential uses. The way this is written, of course, could apply to buildings much higher than 3 stories, but that's kind of irrelevant here in the neighborhood business and community business districts, as I've said. In the use table at the Appendix A, under residential uses, we're adding language to say, or terminology to say that in the neighborhood business and community business zones, residential units in mixed-use buildings, which, as I said, are above all commercial uses, are allowed by special permit. We added a detail for parking requirements for this kind of residential unit. And because the existing village mixed-use zone uses the term mixed-use building, we've revised it to reference the new definition. So that's, in what I hope is a nutshell, that's what this is intended to do.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Yes,
Oh, is there a question in the audience?
Yep. Can we get a microphone up to the
Oh, he's coming down.
third? Can you raise your hand again so we know who it's for? There we go.
Thank you. Bill Nicholson, 33 North Street. So there are a variety of areas in town I assume this applies to. So just for example, at the bottom of Worcester Street by Lake Ripple, those buildings got insurance, the ice cream store, those places, could be purchased, torn down, and have three-story buildings built there. Is that right? As well as, you know, plenty of locations in North Grafton, South Grafton, along 122, 140, and Main Street and so forth?
Yes, any existing building, as I said, replacement of an existing building is one option. And so, yes, any existing building, an existing one-story building, to take that hypothetical, could be torn down and replaced with a three-story building, which is all, other than the residential use aspect of it, that could be done even without this. It's just what you put in the building that changes.
Thank you.
Got another.
Craig Poehler, 55 Miriam Road. When I grew up here, there was about 8,000 residents. Coming back here, there's now close to 20,000. With making these changes, the point is to increase the town to 30,000, 40,000? How many residents do we need here before that we kind of burst at the seams? And it seems to me that these zoning situations were set up to kind of protect that. So if we open the door and allow mixed use on commercial properties and rezone those, the amount of residents that we have, the streets will be filled with the cars. I walk through town every day, narrowly get hit in the crosswalks, sometimes crossing North Street in the center of town. There's 8, 10, 15, sometimes 20 cars that go past before I can cross the street. I'm just not sure how far we want to get size-wise. Thanks.
Roger Trahan, 4 Old Upton Road. Through you, Madam Moderator, I guess this question would be for Mr. Robbins to clarify a couple of things. Is this substantively similar to the article we voted on in the negative a couple of years ago regarding a similar proposal?
The answer to that is no. The article we voted on 2 years ago was quite vague, and it simply said, mixed use. This is much more specific, and it's very narrowly focused on residential use above commercial use, not the broader topic of mixed use such as you might see in the village mixed use zones, and which someday, who knows, we might consider elsewhere, but we're not. This is very focused on a specific need.
Thank you. And one additional question would be that if multiple buildings were put on a particular lot, let's say 2, for instance, would each of those buildings need to conform to that same standard or just one of them? Because I know that sometimes it's a primary building and only that applies.
Yeah. There again, we've quite narrowly tailored this as every building, in order to include some residential, it has to be commercial on the first floor. So unlike some conceptions of a mixed-use project, you might have a commercial building and then separately you might have a residential building next to it. You can't do that under this proposed zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Moderator, Tim Rodriguez, 31 Airport Road. Ask for a point of order on the clarification of the article. If I'm reading this correctly, this article is passed and we're making modifications to it as indicated in bold and strikeout on this document, correct?
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna pull up the actual.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes.
Sure. If I'm reading this correctly, this is already in the bylaws. This article is only amending certain portions of what's already on board. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so minor modifications, it appears to be taking place, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Deleted text is struck out and the new text is in bold.
Okay, so I just asked for a point of order on the article then.
Any other discussion?
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Dauphinais?
Thank you. Thank you. So I guess a few things. If we look at our zoning map in Grafton, most of the makeup of our zoning is residential zoning. We have very limited land that's allocated towards business, whether that be neighborhood business, community business. We do have a village mixed-use zone, which David mentioned, where this is allowed. So basically, this is expanding the ability to take a commercial zone, again, which we don't have a lot of, which is important to the town because that's how we generate revenue. Businesses that require very little services but contribute to the town financially, which we need, and we need to expand that. There's a lot of residential applications that have been filed, and there's a lot of projects that are in the pipeline, big, massive density projects. And that's how I see this. I see us taking a zone that currently doesn't allow residential construction and allowing residential construction in those zones where we need business. And what's going to happen is that's going to be high density construction. So David said that it would be commercial on the first floor and then residential above. But these are going to be big buildings. If you look at the Bolac Plaza property in North Grafton, if they were to put a building, because this would be part of that, this zone is under here, under neighborhood business, if they would allow that to happen there, you could see one story of businesses and then 100 or 200 unit structure there. So is that what we want? I guess that's the question. Is this what we want? Do we want to expand the amount of high density residential zoning in town? They did it through the MBTA station last year or the year before, where we needed something by the station, and instead the planning board proposed, I think, 5 locations in town. Is that right, Fiona? 5? 5. We didn't need 5. So the planning board is bringing us zoning articles that are going to change the landscape of this town potentially forever. So I would be very cautious about voting for this. We need businesses. We don't need more residential zones. And this is allowing that to happen in a zone where it's strictly business right now. Thank you.
Yes, and then.
Mr. Dauphinais, you are mischaracterizing what this does. And in fact, you've made a couple things I'd like to clarify. Number one, you mentioned the Bolac Plaza. That is a village mixed-use zone today. Maybe you don't know that, but it's village mixed-use today. Number two, this preserves the primarily commercial orientation of the neighborhood business and community business zones. Number three, I didn't mention this before, but this may be interesting. The average lot size in these two zones is about 1 acre. So we're talking, what can you do on a 1 acre lot with a building or multiple buildings? At least one of these lots do have multiple commercial buildings on them. But again, think of the footprint of the existing commercial buildings. Think of, maybe your buildings, maybe you're able to build some residential on top of that. But this, again, also since all of this district has already been built, we're not talking about new construction here unless someone wants to tear down their building and build a new one. So to view this as a big expansion of residential and high density is just not accurate. It's just not accurate. Most of the businesses that exist in these zones are just going to stay there. Who's going to? Yeah. And again, I go back to, and Fiona can speak to this more perhaps, because she's fielded some of these queries from local business owners. Likely, if some local business owners are interested in putting residential on top of their existing building, that may be an advantage to a business owner because the income stream from a few apartments may help to make a building renovation more feasible. But it's just wrong to characterize this as a huge expansion of residential and a corresponding diminution of business. Again, this is intended to preserve the business orientation here, and at most, since the area is fully developed already, you're not going to see a whole lot of changes compared to what's there now.
Madam Moderator, can I respond to that? Oh, wait.
You can respond.
Okay, thank you. I didn't say a huge change. I said there could be some massive developments there. And David, you don't know what the future brings. You don't know if businesses are going to sell. I can think of several that may want to sell to some developer that's going to put commercial and then he's going to put 6 stories above it. And I know we have a 35-foot height limit, but that could be changed too, or there could be a variance given for that. That's what we're seeing in a lot of communities like Framingham and Natick. Do we want to be Framingham and Natick? I don't think we do. Town meeting will decide that. But you don't know if these businesses are going to sell. You don't know what's going to happen 5 years or 10 years from now. But what this does, it gives an opportunity, another place in town that has the opportunity to do this. Do we want to keep it business, or do we want to have potentially some mid-rise construction here along Worcester Street, right? Or along South Main Street in South Grafton? Is this what we want for our community? There's places that it can be done, but we're creating more spaces, and I have concerns about that.
Susan Thomas, 76 Keith Hill Road. I'm definitely looking to support more small businesses. As you said, there's a need for that. I am not for high-density residential. I don't think any of us would want that. However, I know a lot of communities in-state and out-of-state that are doing very well having this mixed residential on top of small businesses. And I think that's an important thing for us to consider, because the housing units I've seen going up, for example, over on Institute Road, those are 900,000 plus. So if we want some affordable units for young people or people that are downsizing to live in, I think that's a logical option, is to look at our existing small businesses and put a residential layer on top. I work here in town at a laboratory. A lot of the people that are coming to work at this lab, they can't live in my town where they work. They're going way out to find affordable housing, and in that case, they often leave my employment place because it's too long a commute. And so I was excited when I saw some housing units being developed on Institute Road, but they're not going to afford the $900,000 places, but maybe they could afford a small unit above a small business in town. So I'd like to keep an open mind about that option. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Trahan.
Roger Trahan, 4 Old Upton Road. Through you, Madam Moderator, that purple area in the middle, maybe to Mr. Robbins, is that Koopman's Homefield Credit Union area, or is that North Grafton?
Too bad I don't have a pointer.
The bigger one in the middle near the body of water.
The larger one that's kind of longish. That's Stop and Shop, Koopman's, and Fitzy's and CVS and all that.
Okay, all right. Then one question to the high-density development. Although people may not be inclined to knock down a building, in theory...
Roger, can you go closer to the microphone, please?
In theory, could an unnamed hardware store want to exit the storage facility business, clear out the back of that building, and build this type of housing, or mixed use, is what I'm saying. And I'm referring to a huge footprint.
Yes, in theory, if they wanted to build a large footprint commercial, above that, put some residential, in theory, that could happen. As Craig has pointed out, and certainly we all understand, there's no way of knowing what someone will or will not do. There's no way of knowing what zoning changes we might put in place in the future. We basically have to look at this in terms of what's here today, you could take one huge parcel and tear it all down and put something new, but it still has to be fully commercial on the first floor. However many buildings, the Coopman's example. Take that building behind it, the storage behind it, turn that into another commercial building and plop 1 or 2 floors of residential above it. Sure, that could be done. You have to think about there's a lot of things that our zoning allows that could be done. It's probably not productive to be too speculative about what might possibly happen, because anything could happen.
Ms. Often.
Hi, Laura Often, 79 Old Westboro Road. Mr. Robbins, or Madam Moderator, through you to Mr. Robbins, would this be a potential for somebody to possibly open up a nice, cute soup place with a bookstore and then move on top in a cute little apartment? Would that be the opportunity?
Yes, it would be.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just follow that up by saying one of the images I had in mind as one of the many possibilities that could happen here is someone could want to open a nice little family-run business, with their business on the first floor, and the family could live on the second floor. Something like that is another possibility is one that just happens to already exist adjacent to the common. Retail on the first floor, offices, professional offices on the second floor, apartments on the third floor. This would probably make that building fully legal if we thought that was of interest, or it could enable another similar situation. And the possibilities are probably endless, and I'm not going to try to go through all of the possibilities that pop into my mind.
Okay. You, sir.
Hello, Ryan Tierney, 22 Adams Road. I would just like to take a quick second to briefly speak in support of the motion. I grew up in Grafton. I have lived here all 20 years of my life. I intend to go to college starting in January. And I would love to be able to come back to Grafton postgraduate. However, as we all know, Massachusetts and the greater Boston area currently has a housing affordability crisis. And I see this as a real local solution, as a potential way to help, not solve, the housing shortage that we currently face in Boston, in the greater Boston area. As greater Boston continues to grow, we must grow with it. And I think that this is a real substantive allowance to allow our town to continue to grow as our communities around us continue to grow. Because as it stands currently, I will not be able to afford to come back to the greater Boston area or Massachusetts alone after I graduate with a bachelor's degree, and I would really love to be able to. So I just wanted to briefly say that I do support this motion as a young man who is looking to eventually own a home, to rent an apartment in the town that I grew up in the town that I love. Thank you.
I'm going to take one from the other side first.
Scott Rossiter, 2 Stonewall Drive. Look, this change is a developer's dream. It's pretty simple here. If you like high density, if you like high rises, vote for this. If you don't want that, vote against it.
Mr. Kusher, and then Mr. Yeoman. No, go ahead.
My name's Dan Kusher, 79 Keith Hill Road.
Can anyone hear me?
Sorry.
It's Shelley Hall, 8 Oak Place. I think my question may have been answered with regard to the storage facility question, but I just want to clarify. Somebody could buy several buildings. Could they put up contiguous buildings like they have at Northborough Crossing, for example?
Mr. Robbins?
Yeah, somebody could buy up a bunch of buildings, tear them down, put up something, contiguous buildings, but no matter how it's arranged, contiguous buildings, separate buildings, it's going to be commercial on the first floor. It's always going to be commercial on the first floor, no matter how you configure the buildings. Commercial on the first floor, residential. Again, until we change the height limit, which we'd have to have a real good reason to do so, and I can't imagine that, but that's for sometime far in the future.
Well, I can.
3 stories, at most 2 floors of residential, all within the footprint of the commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kusher?
Dan Kusher, 79 Keith Hill Road. Dan Kusher, 79 Keith Hill Road. 2 points I want to make. The idea that this could suddenly turn into high-rises is disingenuous. Town meeting would have to approve that change to increase the height so that you could have more than 3 stories. It would be the same place as this right now. The same people coming here to vote on this would be coming back to vote on that. It would be a totally separate vote. To say that this will suddenly turn into high-rises is just plain false. It's a maximum of 3 stories. And regarding the idea that this will somehow displace commercial in the town, we saw with 1727 Upton Street, they came in with a plan that included commercial, and they found that it didn't work. There's not a lot of demand right now for more commercial space in town. This will help to kind of subsidize the commercial space by allowing residential in those buildings. That's another source of income for property owners who want to have some commercial space on the first floor, maybe the second floor. This will, in my view, will help to sustain businesses rather than seeing them close down, seeing empty storefronts in town. Thank you.
Madam Moderator.
Patty Eppinger, 44 South Street. I think we've seen the opportunity, well, I guess 2 things. One is we recently had a situation where we are allowing a 4-floor building by special permit somehow. So that's not out of the realm of possibilities. 1727 has become a 4-floor building project. The other aspect of it is, I believe it's in a village mixed-use area, and we didn't hold the developer, we didn't hold their feet to the fire. We didn't say you need to develop it as commercial on the first floor, as zoned, and develop your residential ahead of time, and now we're not. So I guess I just wonder where the teeth are in something like this. Thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
Yes, to clarify, a couple of points. In the village mixed-use zone, a building height of 50 feet or 4 floors is allowed by the zoning. In the 2 zones under consideration here, the maximum building height is 35 feet. And as someone else just pointed out, it would take a town meeting vote to change that. The planning board cannot just say, well, we'll let you build up more than it. It doesn't work that way. The zoning is limited. Also in the village mixed-use zone, although the name mixed use tends to imply a mixed commercial residential use, the actual rules of the zoning in village mixed use allow for what was it in the end approved at 1727, which is all residential. The proposal before you this evening is not that. It is not all of what we see in village mixed use. The proposal before you this evening is strictly to allow residential above commercial within the footprint of the commercial, whether that's an existing building or a building that replaces one or more existing buildings.
Fiona?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Fiona Coughlin, Town Planner for the Town of Grafton. I just fear that, and thank you everyone for your comments in support and in opposition. We appreciate hearing this. I just want to be very clear. This is not in the Village Mixed Use District. 17 and 27 Upton Street was in that district. This is not. This is neighborhood business and commercial business. I have been approached, my office has been approached time and time again by local business owners that are looking to generate additional revenue to subsidize their operation. This is our attempt to support them in that effort. The bulk and dimensional requirements won't change. I know that this has been said, but the height is the same, and the likelihood of highly dense development is extremely minimal. The parcels and the parcel configurations in these zones are very specific and don't really allow for that type of development to occur. Obviously, there is a chance at some point in the future, maybe somebody comes in, buys parcels of land and decides to develop accordingly. However, this is a special permit. It is not allowed by right. It has to go through a review and a public hearing process and can be denied. It's on a case-by-case basis reviewed by the board. I just want that to be clear. There has been mentioned this evening of significant increase in high density that will occur. That is extremely unlikely. This is simply a measure to help support more mixed-use commercial development, as well as create much-needed affordable housing in the town in a more scalable manner. Thank you.
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Yeoman.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Yeomans, 297 Providence Road, South Grafton. I listened to the comments, and I consider myself well-informed and a student of the details. But I find the frustration with this particular article dealing with major changes in the town. We give more time and energy to hearing about a stop sign or a park that is being donated to the town than we give to this major change in how we're going to look at changes in the town. I came here from Shrewsbury. I looked across. We now live in South Grafton. The Polish home now has two very large buildings. I think there are 17,000 square foot buildings, all phase glass, lovely buildings. That, I thought, way back when my fellow town planner, Steve Bishop, Steve Bishop, when I first came to town in 2010, and I listened to the changes, village mixed use, and I envisioned something across the street at the Polish home. Eventually, that was going to change. I envisioned something over there quite different than what is there now. I give the developer or the owner a lot of credit for seizing the opportunity and put his buildings there, and what would have become, what should have become, housing with a commercial element on the first floor, and then with apartments above it. I leave you with the question, could that project that is now in place of the Polish home, might that be possible to be put on the Charlie Bullock, rest his soul, plaza by special permit? I think that this question, I ask all of those in attendance tonight to vote against this question and to form a committee with qualified individuals with the planning department to look at the depth of this question and how it's going to change the makeup of the town. We are dealing with an affordable housing crisis. We have yet to deal with the accessory housing units that was voted in July, and we have to deal with that. And I think that that's going to create a need for us to come together in a group with the planning board, with the planning department. But I think that this question should be voted down tonight and should be sent back to the executive body, the select board, and to have them really expand the opportunity for all of us to come in and to talk about the details of this. And this should be carried to the full town meeting in the spring. I don't think it should be dealt with at the town meeting in the fall, because it is an impact on the entire town, and I'm not going to vote for this evening, and I ask you to consider doing the same.
Ma'am, come forward, please. Been so patient.
Sorry, I'm so short. Thanks. Melissa Durfee, 104 North Street. I had two questions. I think they're pretty quick. So the 3-floor height limit for Mr. Robbins, would that be possible to be increased by a planning board vote for a variance?
The answer is no. The planning board cannot change that. The Zoning Board of Appeals could conceivably grant a variance for that. You'd have to ask the Zoning Board of Appeals how likely it would be that they would do that. I suspect the answer would be, you got to have a really, really good reason to do that, and we probably can't think of one.
Okay, well, in my opinion, there's been a lot of variances permitted to accommodate developers. And the other aspect is, there's a lot of theme of affordability. Was there any thought to try to put in this model a certain percentage of units would have to be affordable?
The planning board did at least briefly discuss whether there should be an affordability requirement included in this, which would be something like a certain percentage of the units would be affordable. Now, as I recall, what we chose to do with that was not to include that, because an affordability requirement typically does not make sense, and we don't have one unless you've got unless you have more than 8 units. But the sense of the board, as I recall it, was that this is generally going to come into play only with a smaller number of units. That is something to consider in the future, but it is not. The board chose not to complicate this with that additional requirement. And I do want to also respond to Mr. Yeomans. It so happens that the committee he proposes exists. We are in the process of updating their master plan, and part of that, I think, covers almost exactly what Mr. Yeomans was suggesting in terms of longer-term thinking about the direction of development in the whole town.
Mr. Mead.
I think everybody in here knows how they're going to vote. And the chipmunk is dead, and we keep hitting it over the head. Madam Chairman, Madam Moderator, I move the question.
There is a motion to move the question. A vote in favor will end debate on this motion. Oh, sorry, William needs a few minutes to get that set up. But a no vote will continue the discussion. So when he is ready, we can vote to move the question.
Madam Moderator,
Ms.
for what it's worth, I don't know, is it meant to say 1 or 2 once you vote?
When you press, whatever number you press, it displays that number.
Okay, mine isn't.
It won't work until I open voting. Like, are you ready? Voting is open. Press 1 to move the question. Press 2 to continue the debate. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carries 130 to 34. We will now take a vote on Article 6. All those in favor. This does require a 2/3 majority vote to pass. All those in favor. Sorry. He needs another second. All those in favor of Article 6, press 1. All of those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion is defeated. 68 yes, 94 no. Article 7.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Jefferson.
I move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $150,000 from the sewer retained earnings account to the O&M emergency account.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 154 to 1. Article 8.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Alamo.
I move the town vote to transfer and appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $200,000 from the sewer retained earnings account to the major equipment account.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 153 to 4. Article 9.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Dauphiné.
I move the town vote to transfer and appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $150,000 from the sewer retained earnings account to the plant upgrade expansion account.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 144 to 6. Article 10.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Often.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to acquire by purchase 2 lots with addresses of 179 and 183 Upton Street, totaling more or less 7.57 acres to be preserved for open space and passive recreation purposes by a conservation restriction to be held by the Grafton Land Trust, and to appropriate for that purpose a sum up to $270,000 from the Community Preservation Open Space Reserve account and $160,000 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund account, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2027, unless the Community Preservation Committee, by a majority vote, extends the deadline, and to authorize the Select Board to enter into all agreements necessary to effectuate said acquisition and convey said conservation restriction.
Motion made and seconded. Before opening this up for discussion, Mr. Rob Aberg will be speaking on behalf of the Grafton Land Trust.
Hi, this is Rob Aberg. I'm speaking for the Grafton Land Trust. My address is 43 South Street. I believe there's a short presentation coming up. There it is. Next slide, please.
There we go.
So here's the famous Dave Robbins graphic from 2022, I believe, that shows, here's the land along Silver Lake. Silver Lake's sort of off to the bottom there. That in 2019 at town meeting, we voted to conserve the yellow lots. Then in 2022, and it closed in spring 2023, conserve the green lots when they came up for sale, and there was a purchase and sales agreement made where the town could exercise right of first refusal, and the Select Board did so then. That's come to pass. And now tonight, we're talking about finishing preserving Silver Lake by doing the same thing to the Chapter 61 land in the blue lots at the bottom there. And the effect of that would be to finish the conservation around Silver Lake, to protect the water resources, not just the swimming, but their wellheads downstream from that. And as it is already, we can see in a dry year this summer that we had to close the lake due to high bacteria, and there was no development on that land. So the recommendation here is to conserve it and protect our water resources here in Grafton and downstream in Upton at the Glen Street wellhead. Next slide, please. So here's a view of what we're purchasing. So people say, hey, what am I buying here for my $400 and some thousand? Here's a photo by Karen Eisenhower looking out from sort of the boundary between the green and the blue lots out, looking south towards Silver Lake there about this time of year 2 years ago. Lots of wildlife habitat there. So now the preservation steps are after there's a purchase and sale agreement for a Chapter 61 property. The Select Board this summer voted to exercise our right of first refusal under Chapter 61, and now we're here. This is our steps at town meeting. We'll vote on Articles 10 and 11. Because we're using CPA funds for this, Community Preservation Act funds, there does need to be a permanent restriction on the land, so it can't be sold off for something else. Because it's being purchased for open space, it has to be permanently restricted to open space. So that the land trust has agreed to hold the conservation easement. A third party has to hold it. It can't be the landowner, and do annual monitoring to make sure that the terms of the conservation easement are followed. The land purchase would follow that if we vote in favor of that tonight. Then a baseline report would be prepared, which the state, they don't require it, but it's on the, if we can look at the next slide there. From the application, it says, will there be a baseline report? If no, explain why not. So it doesn't look favorably on your application, which then it's required by law to have a permanent restriction on this land. So we acquire it, we put a permanent restriction on it, and then we monitor for compliance every year. Then the last piece is some articles in the Telegram and Gazette in the past. Other people in other towns don't have a nice water supply, and they don't have a nice lake to go to. So they come to Grafton's. We come here from Mendon because our beach is often closed for water quality. We like the one here in Grafton because it doesn't smell and there aren't things floating in the water. So before we have anything floating in our water, let's protect this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. This article requires a 2/3 majority vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion has carried by the required 2/3 vote, 154 to 8. Article 11.
Madam Moderator,
Ms. Foley?
I move that the town vote to appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $2,000 from the Community Preservation Open Space Reserve account to the Grafton Land Trust for the purpose of creating the baseline report required by the conservation restriction to be placed on the 179 and 183 Upton Street open space purchase, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2028, unless the Community Preservation Committee extends said deadline by a majority vote.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried, 159 to 5. Article 12.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Jefferson?
I move that the town vote to appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $16,104 from the from the Community Preservation FY 2025 Budget Reserve Account to the Grafton Trails Committee for the construction of 2 boardwalk bridges on the Hassanemesset Woods Conservation Area, with such funds to be expended by June 30, 2027, unless the Community Preservation Committee extends said deadline by a majority vote.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ben Neely, Chair of the Grafton Trails Committee, will be making a brief presentation before I open this for discussion.
Hello, Grafton. I'm Ben Neely, 71 Keith Hill Road. I'm the chair of the Grafton Trails Committee. Tonight I'm here to ask you to approve funds from the Community Preservation account to construct 2 bridges, boardwalk bridges, over wet and muddy areas across streams on the Hassanemesset Trail. Next slide. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the trail in Hassanemesset Woods because it's very popular with hikers, dog walkers, mountain bike riders, and horse riders. There are 2 streams that are perennially, 2 areas across streams that are perennially wet and muddy. Those of you who have hiked the trail, I'm sure, will be familiar with that. Horse traffic exacerbates the issue in these areas, increasing the mud and erosion in those places. We recommend that 2 boardwalk bridges be built over these areas, which are sufficient to support horses and riders. This will allow for the trail to the streams to flow freely and all users to be able to access the trail more easily. Hassanemesset Woods, you might note, is town-owned land, and it's managed by the Conservation Commission. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the area near Station 10 on the trail. As you can see, it's very wet and difficult to pass, especially in the spring. We're proposing that a large boardwalk bridge be constructed to cover the stream and the wet areas. Next slide, please. This is near Station 11 on the trail. As you can see on the left of the photo, hikers have placed logs in the stream to make it easier to cross the stream. That blocks up the flow of the water, leading to more mud and more erosion. The horses typically go around to the right-hand side, which just increases the muddy area there. The bridge that we're proposing would be where the logs are placed now over the stream. Next slide, please. This is a sample of the type of bridge that we're proposing be constructed in those two areas. The bridge was, the design for this bridge was provided by the Bay State Trail Riders Association, which is an equestrian group that has successfully deployed these bridges in other areas. The top of the bridge is covered with pea stone, which increased the traction for all the users. The wood would become very slippery, so we recommend the pea stone. The bridge construction was approved by the Conservation Commission, and the projects will be managed by Boy Scouts who are trying to achieve their Eagle Award. The bridge at Station 11 will be constructed by Jason Margwarth, and will be completed by the end of this year. The larger bridge near Station 10 will be completed next year by another Boy Scout. The total cost for both bridges is a little over $16,000. We request the amount of this from the CPA funds. I should comment, though, that the Boy Scouts have approached Koopman Lumber, who have generously offered to provide the materials for the funds at a significant discount. The budget for the project also includes an estimate of the labor that will be provided by the Boy Scouts as an in-kind offer. Therefore, we don't believe that the final cost of all these of the bridges will be anywhere near the amount being requested, and any unused funds will be returned to the town. Next slide. Thank you. Please approve the amount of $16,104 from the CPA fund for the construction of these bridges.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Didn't see Jackson here. This is Jackson Margwarth, who will be constructing the first bridge for his Eagle project.
Just wanted to say thanks to anybody who supports it. It's an important part of my my project. I can't really do it without the funding, so important part of the project, important part of my scouting as a whole. The Eagle project is a very big, important thing. So anybody who supports that is supporting me personally, I guess, but as well as the town and all those horse riders who need the bridge. So
he's doing a great job so far.
Ma'am.
Hi, my name's Karen Pollan. I'm from 92 Old Westboro Road, and I am with Bay State Trail Riders Association. We support this 100%. The Eagle Scouts, with their projects, the Boy Scouts, we've done others with them, and I know the thought that you have reached out to us for other information, and we are there to support them and provide other information also, because we want to keep this open for equestrian use also. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marr.
Amy Marr, 36 Fair Street. First, I want to say that I'm very much in favor of this entire concept. I just have one quick question. The motion calls for the money to be allocated to the Trails Commission, which my understanding, that group is largely advisory and is supposed to be advising other boards and committees. Why is the money being transferred to that group, and how is that being done as opposed to the Conservation Department? Thank you.
Mr. Neely.
I must say I'm not sure the mechanics of the transfer of the funds, but I do know that they'll be used by the Boy Scouts. The Trails Committee won't have any advantage of these funds. We're merely transferring, if you will, and liaising with the Boy Scouts as part of our prerogatives.
Can someone from CPC come forward and respond?
Or I can do it.
Good evening, Paul Scarlett. I'm a member of the CPC. This will be no different than our other projects. The Trails Commission will be providing us invoices. We will review the invoices for appropriateness, make sure that it is a covered use, and that if they have other funds, that those have been used first. And so there's really no difference. They're not, we're not giving them the money up front. They come to us with the invoices as the project moves forward. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
William Harris, 99 Old Westboro Road. I highly encourage you to support this effort. My son, who has been an Eagle Scout for over 10 years, I was an assistant scoutmaster with 107, Troop 107 for a while, and I can tell you this not only benefits the town greatly, but it also benefits these young men and these young women who are learning how to do things instead of sitting home watching TV or doing other things. It gets them out, gets them busy, gets them working, gets them educated, and it builds not only a better town, but a lot better future. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried 163 to 3. Article 13.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Alamo.
I move that the town vote to appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $85,000 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund account to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton to install a vertical wheelchair lift in the UUSGU building at 3 Grafton Common, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2027, unless the Community Preservation Committee extends said deadline by majority vote.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Before I open this up for discussion, Ted Bouvier will be making a short presentation.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm Ted Bouvier, 34 Armsby Road, Sutton, Massachusetts. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton, and I chair our capital campaign fund that has been working on this project for several years. First slide, please. I want to thank the Grafton Community Preservation Committee for approving our funding request and placing it on the warrant for you to vote on tonight. And I also want to thank the Grafton Accessibility Advisory Commission for their recent letter of support for this funding request. We really appreciate that. Our old meeting house does not have wheelchair access between the first and second floors. You just have to go up the stairs. There's no lift or elevator. And what we're proposing is a vertical lift. It's a light-duty elevator. It's slower, it's less expensive, and it'll get you from the first to second floor, and from the second floor, as you can see in the photo, if you follow the arrow, you'll exit into the rear of the meeting house on the second floor once the lift is installed. Next slide, please. A lot of people have trouble getting around. About 20% of the population at one time or another. Some of these are temporary situations, and there's about 12% of people have ongoing serious difficulty walking or climbing stairs. And we want to welcome and include people of all abilities. We want to make our meeting house more available to the community and a vibrant and active part of the historic Grafton Common. Next slide. You can see here we have an accessible entrance. That's from 2022. Prior to this being installed, there was a 17-inch lift elevation you had to go to reach the threshold. You couldn't get in there, so we built this with funds that we raised. And after we built this, we came to the town meeting through the Community Preservation Committee in 2022 asking for $15,000 to do the engineering and design work for the vertical lift that we're asking for funds now. So this is a phased project. Phase 1, get into the building. Phase 2, do the design. Phase 3, build the lift. Next slide, please. And by the way, as you saw on the previous slide, we have a power door opener, so you can push the button and the door opens. We do a lot of things at our church. We're a very active congregation. We have events like Grafton Celebrates the Holidays that we work on every year. Next slide. We had a recent cello concert by the renowned cellist Guy Fishman back in September. Next, please. And last summer, July 5th, we had an important historic commemoration. It's an effort called Reading Frederick Douglass Together, and we had that inside the building. Sometimes it's on the common, but if the weather's not favorable, we can move inside our building. And the next slide. So here's the bottom line. We already have pledges, donation, and grants of $140,000. This is a phased project. We're now ready to do phase 3. We've been building on what we've already been underway and we've received support from in the past. And we're asking for $85,000 of CPC money to get us to our goal of $225,000. And with your support, we can build a lift to get people to the second floor of our historic building on the Common. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion is carried, 124 to 27. Article 14.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Dauphiné.
I move the town vote to transfer and appropriate a sum of $1,615,336 from the Road Improvement Stabilization Fund to the Road Improvement Capital Expenditures Fund for road improvement projects consistent with Chapter 90 rules and regulations as recommended by the DPW Advisory Committee and approved by the town administrator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion as carried, 144 to 4. Article 15. Will the citizen who submitted this petition please come forward to make the motion?
You can make a motion. Stephen Benincasa, Shrewsbury. To see if the town will accept Millstone Drive as a public way in the town of Grafton or take any other action relative thereto.
No, I need someone who's a citizen of Grafton to make it.
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Jefferson?
I move to see if the town will vote to accept Millstone Drive as a public way in the town of Grafton or take any other action relative thereto.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? I thought he was coming to the microphone. He's just moving closer to the front. Hearing none, all those in favor press 1, all those opposed press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion is carried 107 to 31. Article 16. That's why you were heading closer to the microphone.
John McGill, 215 McGill Drive. Madam Moderator, I move that the town accept the roadways and associated utilities and easements known as Silver Spruce Drive, Manor Hill Drive, and the portion of McGill Drive referred to as Phase 1 in the Highfields Golf Course subdivision.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion as carried 126 to 15. Article 17.
William Harris, 99 Old Westboro Road. Madam Moderator, was looking to see if the town will vote to install a sidewalk on Old Westboro Road from the three-way intersection of North Street to a terminus at Wesson Road, or take any action relative thereto.
Motion made and seconded. Before I open this for discussion, Mr. Harris will be making a brief statement.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, I live at 99 Old Westboro Road, and for those who are not too terribly familiar with Old Westboro Road, it's a highly traveled road. It connects up to Westboro. It's used by a whole lot of commuters between the time of 6 in the morning to 9 in the morning, and from about 4 in the afternoon to about 6 in the evening. A lot of bus traffic, a lot of people traffic, also a lot of pedestrians as well, people running, people exercising. We've had a couple of near misses. We've had one hit. That's too much, way too much. And what I'm looking at doing is having a sidewalk put in very simply to protect the people of the community. Not just the people that live on Old Westboro Road, but those who live off Old Westboro Road. I like to go out and exercise, walk my dogs, and run in the morning. I have a very tough time doing that because it's like playing chicken crossing the road. Somebody's going to get tagged one of these days. One is too much. So the whole idea of me standing here before you fine folks is to see what we can do about rectifying the problem. For 28 years, I defended this country. I don't like being reactive to anything. I like rather being proactive. So if we can put a stop to it before it happens, that's what I'm looking at doing. I've got neighbors that I'm very, very fond of that I don't want to see them wind up getting hit. Even worse off, we've got 13 families with 12 families, with kids under the age of 13 just in my area alone. They have to cut through backyards, they have to go through back areas so they don't wind up getting hit by somebody. So I ask you, please vote yes so we can put a sidewalk in. Madam Moderator, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Mead.
You know, we've talked about sidewalks and, Ray Mead, 217 Brigham Hill Road, sorry. We've talked about sidewalks in this town for years. You know, there's no sidewalks on Brigham Hill Road. There's no sidewalks, you know, really anywhere. It was poor design and poor planning 100 years ago. Unfortunately, this gentleman has a valid reason to want sidewalks in this space. But so does everybody else. Everybody else has valid reasons to put sidewalks in front of their house. Unfortunately, you can vote yes on this, but if you look in the article, there's no funding source. So there's no money to do it. And it would be a lot better if there was a funding source and we could put these sidewalks in and show a funding source up there. But again, you can vote yes for these sidewalks, but they'll never get put in until there's a funding source.
Sir.
My name is Steve Lawrence. I live at 92 Old Westboro Road. I'm an avid walker along that stretch. I've had some close calls. People just don't pay attention to driving. I've had to dive off the road a couple times. And I don't think, I think human life is you can't put a price on it. There should be some way to get this funding, to get this done. It'll save a lot of heartache for anybody if they get hurt trying to walk and exercise and take their dogs for a walk. Thank you.
Sir.
Kevin Joyce, 6 Trowbridge Court. I live in the neighborhood just behind his house, and I have a young child, and I myself have walked that road many times with my kid, and I can tell you it's quite terrifying. And even if there's no budget and this doesn't happen, I think the voice to say yes will tell the town clearly that this is a need. And I don't think we should say no just because 100 years ago there was poor planning. So we should say yes. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, did you have a
Yes, ma'am.
comment?
When it comes to no sidewalks, I worked for the Postal Service after I retired out of the military. Driving one of those LLVs up Kings Hill Road, up Adams Road, Route 4, Route 5, I've driven all of Central, so I've seen where there's no sidewalks. And where I sit on that mill vehicle is over on the passenger side. Still, take the life in the hands. We've got to start somewhere. Saying we don't have sidewalks, we don't have sidewalks, we don't have the funding. Okay, so it's going to take what? Someone to get wiped out, someone to go home in a black bag? No, we've got to start somewhere. Everything starts at a point, and this is a good point, and I am not going to allow one of my neighbors or one of my fellow citizens to wind up going home in a black bag.
Ma'am.
Hi, my name's Karen Palin. I'm 92 Old Westboro Road. I've been a resident of this address for over half a century. As somebody pointed out earlier, the volume of traffic and people in the town has doubled, tripled. And this street is a main road that goes from the center of Grafton, people coming from Upton and Uxbridge and everything, to Westboro. The only other road to Westboro is the main road 140, which we know they all avoid. It's pointed out you can't get anywhere there. This is a place to start. No funding? Well, maybe there is funding, and unless we have a yes vote, we won't be able to find out how the funding can go. And where sidewalks maybe also should be in other parts of the town, they have to start somewhere. Maybe starting by putting a traffic count on this road to see how much traffic actually does go by might point out to the rest of the town how much does go there. I raised my daughter there, and even the volume on the street of residents wasn't there. It's just growing immensely, and I think it's a huge thing, and you should all consider voting yes.
Thank you. Mr. Marr?
Yes. Gregory Marr, 36 Ferry Street. Just so that everyone here knows, could we get information from the town as to what effect this vote would actually have, given that it does not have any funding connected to it at this time?
Mr. Prasad?
Oh, okay. So technically, it has no effect. It would have an effect of acting as a referendum on, say, the select board, DPW, and the rest of us in town government to tell us that that's where you'd like us to focus our efforts. We have done some quick calculations as far as funding sources and costs go. The final cost of this project would roughly come to about $3 million to put in that stretch of sidewalk. The funding mechanism would likely be debt exclusion, and that would be a roughly, it's about $275,000 to $350,000 a year, which If we did a 10-year borrowing at $3 million, it would be about $53.66 per household for that 10-year stretch. And if you did it as a 15-year note, you would have $41.47 per household for that 15-year stretch.
Sir, any other?
Hi, Jim Malloy. I'm a resident of 142 Old Westboro Road. I was not part of the individuals who signed this petition, but the town very nicely put out a speed limit sign right in front of my house about 2 years ago, and I can tell you that even though the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, most people drive 50 miles an hour. I also recognize that there is not a funding source in this article, and so I would, as it is appropriate, Madam Moderator, I would like to offer a substitute motion to have the town meeting vote to direct the select board to present the town meeting for the 2025 annual town meeting with a proposal to do a plan for sidewalks throughout town.
Do you want to amend the motion?
Amend the motion would be fine.
Can you repeat what you said?
I'd like to amend the motion to direct the select board to develop a cost and present that to the annual town meeting in 2025 to develop a plan to develop sidewalks throughout town with the funding source attached to it so that we know.
Can you? Yeah, just 1 minute. Yes, Mr. Mead.
This is a citizen's petition that can't be changed. So you cannot, and you go through town council, you cannot amend a citizen's petition. Okay? So you can't substitute it, you can't amend it. You either vote yes or you vote no.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I would prefer to have town council give that opinion.
Sure.
As a town manager with 37 years of experience, I believe that it can be done.
We're taking a brief recess.
At least pretend you're looking at something in there.
Thank you for your patience. The meeting is back in order. I reviewed with council. There can be an amendment, a motion to amend made on a citizen's petition. Unfortunately, what you're proposing is outside the scope of the article itself. The article is a very straightforward yes or no question. Does the town vote to install a sidewalk? Yes or no? This motion to amend would be directing the select board to develop a cost and sidewalk plan with funding source and presenting at town meeting. That is outside the scope of the article. Is there any other discussion on this article?
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Dauphiné.
Thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Harris for bringing this article forward and thank the residents who signed the petition and took the time to do this, because I think it's, you know, Ray said it well, and the Finance Committee said it well too. There's a lot of, it's a hard decision, and there's a lot of roads that, you know, are windy, dangerous roads where sidewalks would really be, you know, would be great to have. So, and a lot of times we don't get to have a discussion, you know, at town meeting about something like this. It's done at the board or committee level without having 160 people in a room. People don't usually like to come to select board meetings unless they have, you know, they come kicking and screaming, I think. So it's a good discussion to have. You know, I read an article 14 which approved 1.6 million basically for roads for this coming year, and we've been doing that for probably about 10 years. You probably noticed the roads are getting in a lot better shape. DPW and the town administrator have been doing a great job in getting those contracts out there and getting the roads in much better shape than when we started. So maybe the time is right to have the discussion, maybe taking some of that money and putting it towards sidewalks. The roads are getting, we still got more to do, but we've come a long way. So maybe this is a good article to have, and it stemmed this discussion, which I know it takes time, but it's a good one to have. So I'm glad it's here. I'm glad we're talking about it. And it's something that our board can certainly take up and come up with, as that gentleman suggested, maybe come up with a plan for the town, at least the beginnings of that. Thank you.
Okay. There's a motion to move the question on the floor. A yes vote, well, William gets that prepared to review. A move the question will end debate. Voting yes to move the question will end debate on this article. This does require a 2/3 majority. All those in favor of moving the question and ending debate, press 1. All those opposed and wish to continue debate, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion to move the question has passed by the required 2/3 vote, 130 to 20. Article 18.
Nope.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong page. I'm sorry. My notebook's all out of order now. Okay. Article 17, this is a majority vote. All those in favor, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. I declare the motion carried 97 to 32. Before we address the last article in the warrant, I want to take a moment to recognize the hardworking team of people who helped pull town meeting together. William Blake, Amber, Evan, our select board, our finance committee that spends a lot of time reviewing every single article and making valuable recommendations about what is in the best interest of our town financially. Our hosts, Grafton High School, thank you so much for the use of the auditorium. Finn Gilmore and Robbie Johnson from Grafton National Honor Society, thank you for coming and running the microphones. Grafton Community Television, thank you for broadcasting this event and recording it for all of you to watch again and again on YouTube. Our town council, Chris Brown, our town clerk's office, Candy, and all of our election workers that are out in the lobby today. And I just want to remind everyone that our national election is coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. Our polls will be open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please remember to vote, and remember to turn in your remote when you leave. 7 a.m. Yeah. Thank you, Kyle. 7 a.m. Okay, Article 18.
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Often.
I make a motion we pass over this article.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Prasad.
Yeah, by way of explanation, this citizen's petition did not have a layout plan assigned to it. We haven't completed the layout, so the select board at their last meeting voted to order the DPW to create a layout plan. So I would anticipate this would be back in the spring.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. All those in favor to pass over, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is closed. The motion to pass over carries 127 to 6. For those of you who have placed bets, this was 1 hour and 50 minutes. Neither Evan nor Mark Alamo came anywhere close to this. And I think it was Craig or Matt that said, if we put an idea of how short it will be because it was only 18, then we would be jinxing ourselves, and I think you are correct. I will entertain a motion to dismiss. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Please return your remote controls. I declare this meeting dismissed. See you in the spring.